me pay a complimentary tribute to Mr. Fahim Kiani and Tehreek-e-Kashmir United Kingdom and Tehreek-e-Kashmir Europe, an organization which has been working for the cause of Kashmir, for the right to self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir for the past 40 years, 4 decades. And we are beholden to you, the people of Jammu and Kashmir are beholden to you for this consistent and steadfast support to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. I would also like to recognize the initiative that was taken by Ms. Sarah Owens by tabling a motion for a debate in the House of Commons recently. And this debate has made a stir, not just in the United Kingdom, in Pakistan, in Jammu and Kashmir, but also in India, because there was a sharp reaction to this debate. And the Indians are arguing that this was an interference in their internal affairs. They forget that Kashmir is an international issue. It is on the agenda of the United Nations Security Council. It is not India's internal matter. It is not even a bilateral matter. It's a trilateral matter. It is a matter which pertains to the political future of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. So our thanks to the House of Commons for once again holding this very substantive debate. And the themes that they highlighted, the right to self-determination, human rights violations, the role of the Security Council, the responsibility of the United Kingdom in the Security Council. These themes were most appropriate, and they captured the essence of the deteriorating situation in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and the need to do something urgently. So I thank all those MPs who participated in that debate and shone a light on this issue, this very serious issue in world politics. I would also take this opportunity to thank Mr. Andrew Gwynn, for instance, for starting this Labour Friends of Kashmir group. Also, Mr. Paul Bristow and James Daly, who are co-chairs of Conservative Friends of Kashmir group, and also Mr. Phil Bennion has told us that Lib Dems have also constituted a Friends of Kashmir group. This is in addition to the all-party parliamentary group on Kashmir, which has a cross-party membership of 76. This shows that beyond party politics, a very critical mass in the United Kingdom Parliament is supporting the cause of Kashmir, is calling for the protection of the rights of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. It is calling out India's crimes against humanity. So we thank you all. Now, let me come straight to the situation as it prevails in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Most of you are aware of the development since August the 5th, 2019. But the situation is deteriorating. And the most serious crime against humanity that is being committed right now, it may well be called genocide, is land grab in the occupied territory and also illegal transfer of millions of Hindus from all over India into the Kashmir territory. This is an occupied territory. This is a disputed territory. And India is committing these crimes in violation of the 4th Geneva Convention, Additional Protocol 1, Genocide Convention of 1948, and also ICC Statute. There are a raft of treaties and conventions which would condemn these actions, these brazen actions being taken by India to change the demographic composition. And they're doing it at a fast pace. I can tell you that in the past Kashmiris into that territory, and they're swamping the territory with Hindus who are non-natives, and they announce openly that they want to increase this number to 5 to 6 million in the next 2 to 3 years. Now, this would no more remain the state of Jammu and Kashmir in 2 to 3 years, if this valley of Kashmir and Jammu continue to be swamped with outsiders from a different faith, because India is turning it into a communal fault line, a communal issue, um, and so that they prepare the ground for denying the right to self-determination to the people of Jammu and Kashmir, which they had pledged to the United Nations Security Council, to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. So that's not all. As a matter of fact, Kashmiris are being killed. Every day, young men are gunned down in cordon search operations. Women are being raped, as it was mentioned by Fahim Kiani, and there are forced disappearances. There are incarcerations, massive incarcerations. In fact, thousands of young men, including teenage boys and children, they are in these concentration camps inside the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And some of them have been moved to the most notorious prison houses in northern India. Now, there they're being indoctrinated. These detainees are being tortured, and they have been booked under PSA, Public Safety Act, which is a lawless law as per Amnesty International's characterization. Because for 2 years, you can't have access to a lawyer, an attorney, and your relatives can't meet you. So it's a black law, it's a draconian law, and anybody who utters the word Azadi, even 3 to 4 to 5-year-old child, he would be booked. I'm not exaggerating. This has been substantiated by independent sources. So what I want to say is that India is committing these crimes against humanity, genocide, ethnic cleansing, war crimes, systematically, but the world is not holding India accountable. I mean, we're grateful to the parliaments, the UK Parliament. We are grateful to the European Parliament, which last year tabled half a dozen resolutions. 626 MEPs belonging to diverse groups. They tabled these half a dozen resolutions. And they castigated India for its crimes. They also demanded that Kashmiris be given justice. And this was later on, of course, these resolutions did not pass because India sabotaged them under the pretext that Mr. Narendra Modi, the violent extremist leader of India, was about to visit Brussels. So what we are facing is that while we have this overwhelming support from the media, from the parliaments, from civil society, they have spoken up, and I want to compliment the United Kingdom Parliament once again, because you have led the way. You have shown this path of speaking up for Kashmiris to the rest of the world. So we're grateful to you. But governments are tight-lipped. 10 Downing Street is tight-lipped. It hasn't even made an ambivalent condemnation, or FCO equivocates. And then, of course, you have, for instance, other powerful nations, their capitals, Washington, D.C., Brussels, EU, for instance, or even the Secretary General. He is concerned about the risk of a war between India and Pakistan, but he doesn't talk about Kashmiris at all, as if they are not part of this planet, as if it is not part of his writ and remit, because according to the Charter, it is the responsibility of the United Nations Secretary General and also of the President of the Security Council to protect the people of Jammu and Kashmir, to save them from the scourge of war, a war that has been imposed on the people of Jammu and Kashmir. So it's a hands-off approach. It's everybody knows that these zealots in India who are ruling India, they are fascists. They are pursuing this fascist doctrine of Hindutva, this time in the name of religious superiority. And yet the world is appeasing them, looking the other way. In fact, most of the Western countries are supplying weapons, arms, and ammunition to the occupier, this new colonial power in South Asia, and empowering that state economically and politically and strategically and militarily. to crush the people of Jammu and Kashmir. I have said that the intelligence agencies of the United Kingdom, European Union, United States, they have sophisticated apparatus to ascertain facts on the ground. I mean, they are getting this information despite all sorts of restrictions in Kashmir. They're getting all sorts of information about the crimes that are being committed there. The world is not uninformed, and yet they choose to look the other way. This is, I call, either complicity, deliberate complicity, or dereliction of obligation. Now, let me also tell you that India has once again been exposed. It had set up 750 fake entities and accounts, and this has been, its crimes have been exposed by Disinfo Lab. And what was their target? The target was the European Union, European Parliament. They were misleading them. And what were their targets as far as South Asia was concerned? Pakistan and the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And they've been telling lies, not only to the Europeans, but to the people in the United States, United Kingdom, and the world citizenry and decision makers, that they are fighting terrorism in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. They are not fighting terrorism. They are crushing and brutalizing unarmed, non-combatant civilians. And this has to stop if we are really interested in upholding and sustaining the new world order that was put together in the aftermath of the Second World War. If we really want the rule of law at the international level, then we'll have to stop this monstrous juggernaut of India, of imperialism. And India is seeking exceptionalism. It thinks that it is above the law, that it is not accountable to anybody. So it can take any decision unilaterally and get away with murder. Now, I would say that I'll come to the operative part. And what is it that such distinguished MPs can do who are gathered here, members of the Parliament of the United Kingdom? Right now, you are our mainstay. As a matter of fact, we seek your succor and support. We thank you for all you have done. I'm sure that many of you have personally suffered from COVID-19, and I congratulate them on surviving this very, very lethal virus. And the United Kingdom is still passing through a very difficult phase. So Kashmir may not be uppermost in the minds of the British Parliament, but I'm touched by your presence today, that you take time to discuss Kashmir and you're trying to strive to seek some solution, some resolution of this dispute. And you feel for the Kashmiris because you want to save them from the scourge of war and devastation and annihilation and impending annihilation. Now, what are the operative parts? I'd say that the United Kingdom is a member of the Security Council. Please talk to your FCO. Ms. Debbie Abrahams wrote a letter to Mr. Dominic Raab, the Foreign Secretary, and there are other active members who've been communicating with the Foreign Office, either openly or confidentially. We're grateful to them. Also, please talk to your Prime Minister, because the voice of the executive matters, and they should send instructions to the permanent delegation, the United Kingdom's permanent delegation in the Security Council, to lend support to a debate on Kashmir, and in fact, a movement towards a product, a resolution, some sort of presidential statement. And United Kingdom can play a really important, pivotal role in this regard. I think that when I was in London last year, and I want to repeat that while you gather Friends of Kashmir in the Labour Party, Friends of Kashmir in the Conservative Party, the Lib Dems, SNP, all of them, they should reach out to the Human Rights Council, to the High Commissioner for Human Rights, the Michel Bachelet, or the council itself, your voice would matter. As a matter of fact, the communique that you adopt today, if you are going to adopt a communique, that should be sent to the High Commissioner for Human Rights and to the Secretary General of the United Nations and President of the Security Council, because the situation, the deteriorating situation in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir is also a potent threat to peace and security in the region, because India and Pakistan are nuclear weapon states, and because of miscalculation, because of the brutalization of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, the situation can deteriorate to a point where it can escalate to a conventional or even a strategic confrontation between the two countries. I would say that the United Kingdom parliamentarians still have a clout with the European Parliament. Please use that with France, with Germany, with Southern European countries, with Ireland, other countries, and they would heed your voice, your advice, your counsel. I think that IPU is another forum, Interparliamentary Union. They are in the corridors. I mean, even if it is not possible to table something in the IPU formally, you can, in corridors, start these conversations. I will add to that Commonwealth, where the United Kingdom has immense influence. I can tell you that ASEAN, for instance, on this region comprising 10 countries, they have also established in 7 parliaments, Friends of Kashmir group. The word should spread that the international community, the lawmakers of the world, would not countenance genocide taking place before their eyes, that they would stop this crime in the 21st century. Now, at the same time, you represent constituents. My appeal to you is to tell your constituents, make them aware of the horrendous crimes taking place in Kashmir. And we need a civil rights movement, an international civil rights movement, like the movement against apartheid or colonialism or Vietnam War or fascism last century or Nazism, a civil rights movement. Because if the civil rights of Kashmiris are being trampled, I think that the civil rights of the entire humanity are being trampled. We do not live in silos anymore. We're one big global village. I think that it would be appropriate to impose sanctions against India, economic sanctions, and discourage investment going towards India, because that empowers India to commit its crimes in the occupied territory. So, and boycott some of its products, as a matter of fact. This movement, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement has started in one form or the other. It must be crystallized and mobilized in an organized fashion. I can also give you the feedback that some British MPs had asked last time whether the OIC was doing something. We have mobilized the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and in November last year, 57 members of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, they adopted the strongest ever resolution on the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and the brutalities taking place there. They made an inventory of the crimes that India was committing, and they said, stop this genocide. This was the clearest voice in the recent past on India's crimes, and in regard to a series of demands to put an end to repression in Kashmir. So we are beholden to the OIC, but we have to move beyond statements and resolutions and debates, and we have to move towards action. Finally, I would say that why would we appease genocidaires in this day and age? Why would we condone their actions? What kind of world order do we want? And why would these genocidaires in India and in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir would get off scot-free? Why? Because they belong to a big nation and they have license to kill these helpless Kashmiris as if they do not belong to humanity. So my last point is that today we convey this message to Srinagar and to all the peoples of the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, that you are not alone, you are not deserted by the international community, because the Kashmir Solidarity Day is being celebrated all over the world. More than 100 countries are marking this, not celebrating, they're observing this day, marking this day in probably hundreds of cities and towns. So if it was an internal matter of India, why would such a big number of influential MPs gather in the United Kingdom on the eve of the Kashmir Solidarity Day? So our message to you is that you are not alone. The international community is standing with you, standing by you, and we will continue our struggle till you get justice, till you get your freedom and liberty and self-determination. And I can also tell you that this day, because of the tireless efforts made by Tehreek-e-Kashmir and other diaspora community organizations, has become an international day, and the Kashmir movement is fast transforming into an international movement for justice for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you so much for listening to me.